We're going to kind of continue, but this is going to be a bit of a fresh start tonight to look at where we are prophetically and in the world, and things have been changing at a fast pace. But it occurs to me the question, the world seems to be winding out of control, falling out of control. Is it a misstep? Have we messed things up? Or is there an unseen hand behind it all, moving it in an intentional direction? Build back better is not an accident, I believe. Build back better is a plan to demolish everything that is. So in Isaiah 5:20, a verse of scripture that you've heard this many times, we're going to go a bit deeper later into it, but it begins with, in verse 20, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil. Now this is quoted much lately in the last few years because it seems that the ungodly don't mind calling it this way. They don't have any embarrassment doing that. It used to be years ago you wouldn't do that because it was so obvious, but now whatever these people say, they think people are supposed to believe it. And sadly, people do believe it. So we're going to look at this in much more detail. But it occurred to me as I was putting this together that this matches up well with the final church in Revelation chapter 3. Now, there's 7 churches, and they outline church history. And we are past the missionary period of the Philadelphia church, and we are now into the Laodicean era of the lukewarm church. This is just before Jesus comes back. But look in Revelation chapter 3 and verse 14. Calling good evil and evil good, things upside down, inside out. Look what the Laodiceans do. Unto the angel of the church of the Laodiceans write, these things saith the Amen, the faithful and true witness. Okay, so what Jesus says, that's truth. The beginning of the creation of God. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm, and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. And here's where it comes in, upside down. Because thou sayest, I am rich, and increase with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art opposite that, wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. And he gives them advice on what to do, but it just occurred to me there's no accident that the last church is going to be very much like the times, calling evil good and good evil, upside down and inside out. So it also occurred to me that the apostasy, as I've been thinking about it, of the church, is not a benign point of sadness. The lukewarmness of the church, the apostasy, the false doctrine now in the church, is actually a part of the Tower of Babel being erected. The church had to apostatize in order for things to shape up the way that they are in the world, and in particular in America. So that was a little bit of a tweak of my understanding. It's not an accident. It's not just a sadness. It's a part of the plan. Yeah. So, falling from grace, that's what we would call apostasy, or down the rabbit hole. We'll talk more about Alice as we get to that. Have any of you read Alice in Wonderland? I encourage you, read Alice in Wonderland or watch the YouTube video of it. It's much more entertaining. Alice, of course, chased the white rabbit, fell into the rabbit hole and into that world. So falling from grace or down the rabbit hole, this has made its way. They tell me that quotations from Alice in Wonderland are more quoted in Great Britain, second only to Bible quotations. So Alice in Wonderland is really very interesting. Anyway, you get the picture. So a survey by the Cultural Research Center of Arizona Christian University, conducted just 2 years ago, found that just slightly over only 1/3 of Christian evangelical pastors hold a biblical worldview. So this is not done by CNN or anybody that hates Christians. This is done by a Christian organization who's trying to get the truth. About a third, over a third, of evangelical pastors have a biblical worldview. Only a third of them have a Christian worldview. If that is the case, then what view do most pastors believe? The survey said that the majority of Christian pastors, 62%, hold a hybrid worldview, which is a blending of multiple and different worldview belief systems. Believe a little of the Bible, believe a little of this and a little of that, and a little bit what the culture says, and that's where the pastors are today. They're subjugating the Bible to other views that they think might be more important. This is not accidental. This is all a part of the spirit of this age, not just affecting the people in this society, but the church so-called. Let's talk about a little bit more current news. 1 in 5 Protestant pastors in the United States, 21%, say they see nothing wrong with two people of the same gender getting married. Now, this is from Lifeway. This is the publishing arm of the Southern Baptist Convention. They've been gathering data for years and become professionals at it. And of course, they focus in on the church and Christian matters. So 21% of evangelical Protestant pastors don't have any problem with two people of two different genders getting married, same gender getting married. Now, that of course is lagging behind our society because how many genders are there? Does anybody know? 3 in 4, 75% are opposed, including 69% who strongly disagree with same-sex marriage. So 75% still kind of have a biblical worldview, but 21% don't have any problem with gay marriage. So let's talk about some more news. And something occurred to me, and I've not heard this talked about by any of the prophecy people. I've not heard this anywhere. The next pandemic, they've been talking about that a bit, and disease X, but they haven't connected up this dot. So you've heard about the new bird flu, right? You've heard about that. Only the last I'd heard, 2 humans had contracted it. That's a crisis. In those 2 individuals, it presented as conjunctivitis. Conjunctivitis. That is an irritation of the eye. Well, you wouldn't even miss that. You wouldn't even miss work on that. Well, we might now. You begin to see what I'm talking about. Yet, we have destroyed or are about to destroy millions of chickens. The conclusion: animal-based protein is expensive and dangerous. Now, it's expensive because of what they're doing, but cows, chickens, pigs, it's dangerous for us to be around them. We can get an eye irritation from them. So, they are, I believe with all my heart, this is not accidental. They haven't killed these millions or about to kill millions of chickens just because a couple of guys got sick and maybe a dozen more might get sick. But I believe that they're incrementally preparing us mentally to eat bugs. So you're asking me to explain insanity, and I have no point of reference to be able to do that. Yeah, I understand that. But they have to move us incrementally. Because, I mean, who's going to give up their steak or hamburger now? Anybody here ready to give it up? No. We've even had some folks in our church who were vegetarian who have come back. They like steak. So 1 degree at a time. They've got to boil that frog 1 degree at a time. They've got to move us slowly. And those of us who won't go along easily, we're going to have to do, just like climate change, right? That's a crisis, right? No. But if you ask the average person walking on the sidewalk out there, is climate change a problem? Yeah. That's where most of America is now.
But then if you ask them how it's a problem, most of them wouldn't have an answer.
No, you're right. They wouldn't. So, food insecurity is going to be a huge factor in controlling the world. You add that to increased financial burden for animal-based protein, and you have a fabricated crisis equals a power grab, which is what we're talking about. The Tower of Babel is being erected right before our very eyes. See, when the rapture happens, everything has to already be in place, right? Now, I think Jesus may come back even a little bit earlier than the devil's going to be ready for it, but he'll quickly be able to move things into place after the church. I mean, after all, we're what's in the way, right? We're what's in the way. So some World Economic Forum news. You haven't heard much about them lately, but there is some news about them. So you may have heard that Klaus Schwab is stepping down. I apologize. That's kind of hard to see, isn't it? I'll correct that. I won't do that anymore. I apologize. Things look great on my screen and they don't look good up there. Anyway, Klaus Schwab is stepping down as the leader of the World Economic Forum. Here is this gal here on the right is kind of a well-known financial guru. She's also a Christian. Listen to what she has to say.
All right, let's look at the news headlines to start with. First one up is Klaus Schwab. He's to vacate his top post as World Economic Forum looks to become global leader in public-private cooperation. So as many know, Klaus Schwab is founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. I just want to bring in Catherine and Carolyn on this for a second because I am watching as everybody's celebrating and the people are writing, this is going to be great. Now, no, it's not. He hasn't gone. Away. Catherine, will you say what you think?
So
it's not gone.
Yeah. So what this says is our risk levels just went up. So it's not good. It's the this is not good. It's the opposite. And we're seeing this in many positions across the establishment, Polly. We're seeing, I call it the hitman cometh. They're moving either someone like Schwab into a behind the scenes role where he can work more effectively on big moves. So he's not leaving. He's putting his wife as the public face, and then he's going into the back room to sort of engineer things. And of course, as I said, all of this is subject to the approval of the Swiss government, which tells you who's really in control. And I would say it's the Bank of International Settlements in Basel. But be that as it may, we are watching positions all across Europe and the United States being, the last guy's being moved out and a new guy's being moved in. And we just did it on Money and Markets. I called it the hitman cometh. So this is not good news. It's bad news. They are building up to another big move. We really see that by the head of the UK calling for a general election. There are rumors that the current PM does not want to be a wartime PM, and they're going to move in somebody who basically is a member of the Trilateral Commission, I think, who is happy to be a wartime leader. So don't celebrate this. This is not a good look.
So the real power base, money-wise in the world, is in Switzerland. That's not really a surprise. And there are some other things that I've been listening to lately. They've been talking about the shifting going on. You know about the digital currency that's coming. We've talked about that a lot. You know it's coming. Well, it's coming all over the world. And instead of Chase or any of the other big banks who used to be the power base, they've got an organization now that's overseeing the digital currency that's coming, that all of those banks are under this authority. So you see, they're moving things so it's much easier to make decisions and make people obey it. Countries obey it.
That's what Biden set up with when he first got
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah. Only surprisingly, he's not in charge of it. There's this organization, this cabal, if you will, that's even over the banks and over governments. The governments and the banks will do the bidding of this organization. So, why did Alice chase a white rabbit? So somebody posted this, and I thought this was brilliantly put. If you saw a white rabbit, which means it is domestic, not wild, loose in the countryside, and it was wearing a waistcoat, and what rabbit with any sense of fashion would wear such an item, and looking at a pocket watch, who uses those anymore, and talking to itself about being late. Rabbits don't care if they're late to anything except a meal, and they are sociable creatures who will talk to anyone but not to themselves. Wouldn't you chase it? I know I would. Now, I just thought that was rather comical. A takeoff on, Neo did this. Neo chose Neo chose the red pill over the blue pill. So this has made its way into a lot of movies and so forth. If you take this pill and swallow it, you'll go down the rabbit hole, but you can never come back. You know what it means to fall down the rabbit hole. Our world is not out of control. Has it innocently followed a pursuit that wound up in a land it didn't even know existed? Or is this orchestrated? It looks chaotic. It looks like it's out of control. And that's how they get what they want. That's always been the case. You look at the way the communists have always come into a country: chaos, confusion, control. There's nothing really new about that. Nimrod took over the cities that became his nation under his authority. He would go into this community, this city, and he would kidnap the king's children. And he would send word to the king, as long as you do what I tell you to do, and everything's simpatico, your children will be fed and taken care of. If you don't do what I say, I'm not going to kill them. And he gave them a list. He would give them a list of the ways he was going to torture his children. So that's how Nimrod took over city after city after city and amalgamated his power. Well, in a way, that's what we've got going on now. Country by country, that's what's going on. We've got World Economic Forum. We've got the World Health Organization. All of these things. After World War II, everybody was kind of on. I say this having read history, didn't really experience it. I was born in 1953. That was after the war. But from what I have read, the whole world was kind of weary of war because World War II was so damaging in so many ways. The world was ready for a United Nations organization. They're ready for it. We need to do something so this never happens again. Now, that hadn't worked out so well, but that was where the world was. So we're down the rabbit hole, but it's no accident. So in Isaiah 5, verse 20, we read, let's read the rest of those verses. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. Well, who would do that? Who would think they could even do that? Who would think you could call a woman a man? Who would think you could even do that? That put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. That's what Biden and the bunch have been saying. The economy is really pretty good. You just don't realize it.
Yeah, that's what they're telling us.
I needed an 8-foot piece of 12-2 with the ground. piece of wire to finish up a wiring project I got going on. I just needed 8 feet. I've got the rest of what I need. So I went to the Home Depot. No, I went to Lowe's. And I thought I would grab probably the smallest they would let me buy is 25 feet. I figured that, right? So I get there and it's behind a cage. I've got to get somebody to let me in. And the price, now I haven't bought any wire for a while. Okay, I've been out of touch. I hadn't done electrical for a while. My mind was absolutely blown. About $1 a foot. Right? Yeah, about $1 a foot. Wow. Yeah, the economy is good. Bitter for sweet, sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. Jill Biden on The View just this week said, my husband is a man of integrity. Are you married to two guys? But The View just swooned all over her. Yeah, your husband's a guy of integrity. So Trump said just recently, this week, that Biden was not only the most corrupt president we've ever had, he's the dumbest president we've ever had. Well, and he's an empty suit anyway. Who's running the White House?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they didn't put him in there for him to use his brains.
It's the gay crowd that's running the White House. Okay, one of them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight, one of them that are mighty to drink wine, and men of strength to mingle strong wine, which justifieth the wicked for reward, and take away the righteousness of the righteous from him. It bothers me every Wednesday when we gather and we come to praying for our government. And the first thing up is we have the president, who is the most corrupt leader we've ever had.
Absolutely.
So how do we pray for him? Well, you can't pray for him if you're a Christian, but you can pray about him. I pray for those who would do righteousness to prevail, and those who would do wickedness to be stifled. Proverbs says that the Lord turns the heart of the king whichever way he will. And, we're just cheering God on because you can't stop his will. He's going to do what he's going to do. And I'm just saying, go God. Okay, so there's that. So the mechanism or the means to make this happen. For the man of sin, the Antichrist, goes by a bunch of different aliases. He is the Antichrist, which is not only against Christ, but in place of Christ. In order for him to replace Christ, the combination of artificial intelligence and robotics will enable him to have godlike powers. I don't know if you've noticed it, but today when you interacted with artificial intelligence, it was a lot quicker than it was a year or two ago. Did you notice that? Oh, you didn't know you interacted with artificial intelligence? I'd venture to guess there aren't more than 2 or 3 of you who didn't. Now, I doubt there was anybody who didn't. If you go to Home Depot and have a chat with the chat box, artificial intelligence. If you have a phone, I have a phone. If you pick it up and want to open it up, it recognizes your face. It recognizes my face. It knows you're not to get into my phone. Artificial intelligence. And across the board, if you've got electricity running into your home, AI at some level is involved there just by knowing the electricity that you use and those sort of things. Every one of us are affected in some ways wonderfully. Wonderfully. I was listening to some information about an AI that was used in medicine. And this particular AI was able to take all of this data from women that were in the hospital who had 1,000 different data points, from a temperature to a cough, and all of this information, which that would be kind of overwhelming. I mean, what would you even do with that? This artificial intelligence was able to extract from that this number of people, and these particular ones are going to develop breast cancer in a year. And when asked how the AI knows that and was able to figure it out, the people that run that AI said, we actually don't know, but we know it's accurate. It turns out the way they say it. The AI says it. That's all AI is at this point. It's able to take all of this data that would overwhelm any human being and is able to manipulate that information into usable data. So this is a wonderful thing. When you meet the Tesla out on the road, you know, my wife is so predictable. Whenever we see a Tesla out on the road, I say, honey, you know, if we keep saving our money, I can afford to buy one of those. And it is predictable what she will say. You just test this. Next time you see Judy, just ask her, what do you think of Teslas? I'll tell you what she'll say, and she will not verify. Those are the ugliest cars on the road. That's all she can think about. But AI controls those Teslas. And I've told you, it's going to be a wonderful thing when all of the cars on the road are controlled by AI. They will never run into each other. They will not be inattentive the way I am. I mean, I look at the cows, and AI will never run into people. AI will never be inattentive. AI will never cut off anybody.
Sure. Insurance should be lower.
What?
Insurance should be
Absolutely. It's going to make perfect sense. AI is wonderful. Now, there's a layer of that in which it won't be good. See, you can only drive based on your carbon footprint so many miles from your home. Car won't work beyond that.
See, we don't need all of those charging stations all over the country, do we?
Yeah.
They don't let you anywhere
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Somebody had a hand up there.
Will they change the flat tire? They don't even recognize them.
Yeah, so now, okay, you're using logic. You've got to stop that. I saw a great picture. I don't know whether it was a Photoshop picture or whether it was real. You can't tell anymore. But it was all of these charging stations in this parking lot, and there was about a foot of water in the parking lot. I'm not thinking that's going to work out so well. But anyway, AI is going to be able to match up with robotics in such a way, you know, and we've talked about this before. Let me go forward for those who may be tuning in who haven't heard this. There was the giant robot. You can Google search that, giant robot, like 40 feet tall, and it's tied into the network. And so one person standing at one place, or the algorithm, can put the message out there, and this giant robot will speak all over the world with one voice. And it will be able to see, because it's got a camera, right? It will see whether you have bowed down and worshiped at the proper time. I mean, this is already reality. This is not, it wouldn't take the Antichrist a year to build that. It's already here. Yeah. Well, the first thing you want to ask is that what my click is actually going to do, or is there something else going on that I don't know about? But Facebook has maybe one of the first ones to use AI in a huge way. Did you ever wonder why you see the stuff you see on Facebook?
They've been feeding that to you for years.
I want to see all my friends' stuff, but I can't. Because AI, based on what I click on, what I have liked, what I've disliked, the movies I've watched when I see them, based on the AI is presented to me the stuff it thinks I want to see. The Tower of Babel, don't forget, I'll let you read it on your own, Genesis 11:3. The goal of the Tower of Babel is happening right before our eyes. Brick instead of stone, man instead of God. 2 Thessalonians 2:9 talks about that person who's going to use supernatural power, or at least it will seem to be supernatural power, in order to be able to accomplish this alternative to God. So let's talk about this brave new world that we have come to. AI, mind manipulation, what I call anti-reality. That's what I call when you watch the kids on the campus celebrating Hamas. That's anti-reality. Now, it's not based on any reality in the real world, but that's where their minds are. Collectively, that's where their minds are. And truth control. Have you done a Google search lately? Just test it out. Do a Google search on homosexuality or abortion, and they're going to feed you what they want you to read first. Now, there will be people who will argue that they're just feeding you what is most found, right? They're saying, this is what most people see. This is what they want to see. So they think that's what you probably want to see as well. I think that's naive. They are manipulating what you see on Facebook.
That's how they know most people want to see that. It's because they feed it to them.
Yeah, and it's pretty amazing. Even if you try to check out, if you try to eliminate yourself from the whole thing, you will become a dark figure, a hooded dark figure, and that will stand out. Well, the last 3 or 4 times I've been in an emergency room, I never thought I'd live old enough to say that. They will ask the question fairly early on, how do you feel? Do you ever have depression? Do you have a gun? But don't miss my point. Even if you say no, that's a data point. You'd be surprised at what marketing knows about you based on, and then if you don't know this, please, it won't do any good for me to tell you this, but I won't tell you anyway. When you click on stuff on Facebook, you are giving them data points. That's a data point. But when you click on something, they don't care about that information. You have given them a data point. Oh, he's kind of interested in this kind of stuff. So, AI. So here is the International Association of Business Analytics Certification. AI in our life. Ethical concerns. So we talked about the voice assistants. When you get onto Lowe's or Home Depot, there's always that chat bot that pops up there and wants to talk to you. Natural language processing. Yeah, it's amazing. I can take my phone, and this has really changed in the last 4 or 5 years. AI has made it so that I can begin talking. I could turn my phone on and begin talking, and it will listen as long as I talk, and it will get it right. It's uncanny how right it gets it. Google Maps, navigation, if you use Google Maps, or Apple for that matter, you're using AI. Healthcare and diagnostics, social media, we've talked about that. Financial services, your bank. And there's no getting away from it. And this, you got to see this. What's real?
So, how are you doing there, Joe? Come on, wake up, Sleepy Joe.
Wait a second. Who are you? Do I know you?
Yeah.
Are you James? Wait for me a second.
Oh, God, don't start
My
with
medicine
this.
hasn't kicked in yet.
That's not a surprise.
Hey, I thought you were a nice guy, Danny.
I'm Danny.
Is it Tommy?
Wrong.
Question. So in the room, I have my TV set up with Roku. The Roku works just fine, but I can't get the Nintendo Switch to show up on the TV screen. Why is it doing this?
What input do you have your Nintendo plugged into?
What is that?
Seriously? The HDMI needs to be connected to the Nintendo, which goes into one of the inputs. Then on the TV screen, change the input to match the switch. You got that, Sleepy Joe?
Yes, press the switch twice time.
Joe, I'm thinking of a number 1 through 10. What is it?
Billy, I'm thinking it's 1417.
Sorry, it was 9.
Oh, shucks.
I win. I always win.
Yeah, is that true? Bruce?
Of course it is.
Then tell me, who is the current president?
Oh. Joe shots were fired. At least you said one smart thing.
Babushka, I love you.
Hey, I love you too, Joe. Now let's go fire up your Nintendo Switch.
Was that real? Except for the context of it, you'd think it was. You'd think those two guys were those two guys. But obviously the context of it, that's not going to work. Uh-huh.
Did you hear that China has called in, I think, $500 billion of treasury notes?
No.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because they want to garner as much of the world. They want to take as much dollars out of the world, American, and switch it over to China.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's starting to turn.
Yeah. So we think the United States and China and Russia are all enemies, don't we?
Oh,
What if that turned out not to be the case? So I want you to see this, and since Judy's not here, I can go as long as I want tonight, right? One of the best television shows that ever came out of Hollywood is called Person of Interest. If you've never seen Person of Interest, you need to go watch every one of them up until the last year when they went nuts on something. So the idea is this guy wrote this algorithm and made a machine. That's what they call it. This machine is tied into every database in the world, all of the government databases, every camera. Okay. Now that was a stretch 10 years ago or whenever this happened. It's not a stretch now. So they have made a complete backup. The guy who did this and a couple of people who help him, they try to save people. The machine tells them this person is either going to kill somebody or is going to die. They don't know which. So they've got to follow this person around and try to stop that. It's very, very entertaining. But they've made a complete backup of this machine for some reasons. And they're doing a test. This is very interesting.
You just missed her.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Bitch, I'm in position. Very good.
Commencing surveillance test. Please locate primary asset. Excellent. Can you tell us a bit about him?
Oh dear.
Now, perhaps you can tell us about the people around him.
Authorities are investigating a fire that destroyed two homes last night.
Wow. An open system. I will never understand why you shut all this information in a box, Harry. We can ask it to search for anything, for anyone.
So the whole thing revolves around how do they keep this machine to use it for good and not let CIA, NSA, governments who would kill all of us to get that. It's very entertaining, and it's not a stretch. I think I've got that camera password protected. You suppose the NSA could get into that? So this is an interesting Tower of Babel that's being erected, but we're going to have to leave it there.